He lost everything at 28, but what he built from the rubble will leave you speechless and emotional. He was 28 years old, his son was barely 1, and he had just found out his wife had been sleeping with someone else. And instead of screaming, instead of breaking things, instead of doing any of the things you would expect a person to do in that moment, he asked her one simple question. He asked her if he should leave and whether he should take their son with him. And she nodded. That quiet nod said everything that needed to be said. And what happened next would take 5 more years to fully make sense. He had spent a third of his life with this woman. They were young when they got together, grew up inside that relationship, and somewhere along the way they had also built a drinking problem together, like it was just another shared hobby. They had started young and easy, the way a lot of relationships do, 2 people leaning into each other before they had any real idea who they were apart. And the years stacked up. The nights on the couch with drinks poured before dinner was even finished. The way the bottle became the third presence in the room, always there, always waiting. He had given up pieces of himself slowly, year by year, the way you do not notice a slow leak until the tank is empty. Until he barely recognized the person he had become inside that house. A quieter version of himself. A smaller one. So when she told him she had been cheating, part of him felt something he did not expect to feel. Part of him felt something close to relief. That scared him more than the betrayal did. Because how do you grieve a life that was already quietly suffocating you? How do you explain to anyone, let alone yourself, that the worst night of your life also felt like a window cracking open? He packed what he could the next morning, moving carefully through the house they had shared, past the baby toys on the floor and the coffee cups by the sink, and he walked out the door with their son. And that was the last time that house was home. Here is where things got really dark, and I need you to stick with me because it matters. The first weeks after he left were not the beginning of a comeback story. They were a collapse. A full, ugly, bottom-of-the-barrel collapse. He moved in with some close friends, sharing a single room with his baby boy, a pack and play in the corner, and his whole life in 2 duffel bags. And he drank. He drank like a man trying to drown a feeling he could not name, could not even fully look at yet. He could not keep food down. The thought of eating felt absurd, like his body had decided that sustaining itself was a lower priority than simply getting through the next hour. He dropped from 180 pounds to 140 in a single month. That is 40 pounds in 4 weeks. His body was physically rejecting the idea of continuing. He would FaceTime his ex-wife and try to hold himself together on camera, try to look like a person who had it under control, smoothing his expression into something that resembled okay. And the moment the call ended he would fall apart again, the composure dissolving as fast as he had assembled it. He said it himself. Once he was out of that house, once the numbness of the situation wore off, all of those feelings hit him like a truck. The grief and the anger and the shame and the confusion, and underneath all of it, that terrifying sense that he did not know who he was without her. He had no idea who he was, period. He was a person who had defined himself entirely in relation to someone else, and now that someone else was gone, there was just this hollow outline where a person used to be. He was chain-smoking, barely sleeping, holding on to that bottle like it was the only thing keeping him upright. His friends let him stay, tolerated all of it with a kind of patience he still finds hard to explain, and he still cannot fully describe how they put up with him during that period without losing their minds or their sympathy. He had no family nearby to call on. He had no other support system waiting in the wings. He was a 28-year-old man with a 1-year-old son, no clear future, and a drinking problem that was genuinely threatening to swallow him whole. There was a week where his former mother-in-law stepped in and took the baby so he could try to collect himself. Just so he could have 1 week to exist without being responsible for another human life at every moment. He described lying there staring at the ceiling for hours, the room too quiet, the absence of his son somehow making everything feel worse instead of better. His mind racing through every possible version of the future and finding nothing that felt livable. Existential dread sitting on his chest like a physical weight. Obsessively watching his phone waiting for any message from her, even knowing that any message she sent would probably make him feel worse. That week alone, with nothing but his own thoughts and his own fear and the cigarette smoke hanging in the still air of that borrowed room, was probably the closest he came to the edge. That is the version of this person that almost did not make it. And I think it is important to sit with that for a second before we get to the good part. After about a month of that freefall, he forced himself back to work. Retail management. Something he knew but hated, the kind of job that asks just enough of you to keep you moving but not enough to actually distract you from what is eating you alive. He dragged himself through those shifts on autopilot, took constant cigarette breaks in the parking lot where the cold air was at least real and immediate, talked to anyone who would listen. He was not thriving. He was surviving, and barely. But he was moving, showing up, keeping one foot in front of the other even when he had no particular reason to believe it would lead anywhere worth going. And then one night he ran into an old friend from high school. The friend owned a small information technology business, and when our guy asked if he was hiring, the answer was no. He did not push it, did not beg, just asked and accepted the answer the way someone does when they are too tired to argue with reality. A few days later the friend called back and said come in anyway. And that phone call changed the entire direction of his life. He started at $10 an hour doing basic camera installations. That was it. That was the beginning. He had some background tinkering with computers and building machines in his spare time, but nothing formal, nothing certified, nothing that would have looked impressive on paper to anyone doing a standard hiring review. His friend took a genuine chance on him, the kind of chance that most people never get from another human being, the kind that requires someone to look past what is on paper and see something in the actual person. And he did not waste it. He taught himself advanced networking out of what he described as simple boredom, sitting up late after his son was asleep, reading documentation and watching tutorials and testing things just to see how they worked. He absorbed everything he could, moved from help desk support to server administration, built custom applications, expanded his skills in every direction he could find, following his own curiosity like a thread through a maze. He eventually landed a role at a critical infrastructure utility. And today, in a small rural town where the cost of living is low and the pace of life is quiet and deliberate, he manages network infrastructure for that business and several others. He runs a help desk. He builds applications. He works remotely when he needs to. He makes $65,000 a year at what he genuinely calls his dream job. He built that from $10 an hour and a chance encounter in a parking lot. That part gets me every time I think about it. Now let us talk about the boy. Because this whole story, every single part of it, comes back to the boy. He was 1 year old when his dad packed that car and drove away. He does not remember any of it. He never will. What he knows is the life his dad built for him, the only version of events that will ever be real to him. He is 7 now, finishing up first grade. He is into Legos and dinosaurs and Transformers, the way 7-year-olds are into things with a full body commitment that adults mostly forget how to do. He plays his own little keyboard in his room, picking out notes with the focused seriousness of a kid who has decided this matters to him. He goes to the arcade and the zoo and the movies with his dad on weekends, those ordinary weekend rituals that feel like nothing from the outside and mean everything from the inside. He earned Leader of the Month at school for honesty, and that certificate is on the refrigerator right now. His name is spelled out in big block letters on his bedroom wall, letters that his dad put up himself when they moved into their house together, carefully pressed into place. He has been in school pictures for 3 years in a row, lined up on the wall like little chapters of a story that keeps getting better. This kid is being raised by a man who clawed his way back from nothing, and you can see it in every detail of how that house runs. The care in it. The intention behind it. His dad has sole physical custody and never had to fight for it. Not for a single day. Now I want to talk about the drinking, because he did not skip over it and neither should we. It was genuinely bad. He was the kind of person who came home and immediately started pouring, the drink waiting at the end of the workday like a scheduled appointment. He and his ex-wife had enabled each other for years, drinking together almost every night, and neither of them ever named it for what it was. It was just part of the relationship, woven into the fabric of the evenings, just what they did. When she left, the excuse was gone but the habit was not. The first few months he was still drinking too much, just alone this time, which is a different and quieter kind of bad. No one to share it with, no social cover for it, just a man and a bottle and the specific loneliness of a habit that used to feel like connection. And then slowly, gradually, over the course of years not days, he got tired. Tired in the bone-deep way that does not come from a single bad morning but from dozens of them stacked on top of each other. Tired of waking up feeling like garbage. Tired of being foggy when his son needed him present and clear. Tired of not being the father he wanted to be, the father he could see himself becoming if he could just get out of his own way. He cut back slowly. Some weeks were harder than others. Some months felt like backsliding. But he kept going. Eventually he quit smoking cold turkey, just decided one day that he was done and never picked up another cigarette. And the drinking settled into something manageable. Now it is one glass of whiskey at the end of the night after his son is in bed, and it stays there. He said it himself. He just does not need it the way he used to. That is not a small thing. That is years of quiet, unglamorous work on himself that nobody handed him a trophy for. What he built for himself on the personal side of life is worth talking about too. He plays piano every day, has 2 pianos in the house now, picked it up as a hobby and it became something that held him, something that belonged entirely to him. He got his motorcycle license and now owns 3 bikes, maintains them himself as another hobby, the kind of hands-on work that requires your full attention and gives your mind somewhere to go. When his son is away he has a full life to step into, a life with texture and interest in things he chose for himself. He is not sitting in an empty house staring at the walls waiting for the weekend to start. He is a complete person outside of being a dad, which is exactly what his son needs to see modeled growing up. He says he is content in a settled way, not the restless happiness of someone still chasing something, but the quieter kind that comes when you look around your life and recognize it as yours. He says it feels weird to finally have everything he ever wanted. And then he said something that I keep coming back to. He said he never realized one person was holding him back from building the life he wanted. That this life was not possible with her in it. That line hits different when you understand the full picture. As for her, he is not bitter. He does not dwell. He says her patterns continued, got worse, more children, a turbulent relationship with the person she cheated with, and now serious legal issues that he is not willing to go into publicly. He is working with the proper channels to make sure his son stays protected. He tried dating for a while, found it hollow, got briefly intimate with her once during one of their conversations and felt absolutely nothing, like pressing on a bruise that had finally healed all the way through. So he let it go and they went back to co-parenting business only. She eventually married the person she had the affair with, and that became their story to carry. His story went somewhere else entirely. He said if he could go back to the version of himself that was binge drinking and spiraling, he would tell that person 3 things. That the grief is not the same as love and the grief will lift even if you cannot feel the difference right now. That being alone is not something to be afraid of. And that you do not have to forgive someone to move on. I want to say this clearly because it needs to be said. That man did not survive his life despite the affair. He survived it and then rebuilt from the foundation up because of the decision he made the morning after. The quiet decision. The one where he packed a bag and walked out without a scene, without revenge, without falling apart in front of her. He saved his own life. He saved his son's life. He taught himself a career. He built a home. He killed a bad habit. He found peace in a life he designed entirely himself. Nobody handed him a single piece of that. And the kid on the fridge with the Honesty Award who plays keyboard in his room and goes to the zoo on weekends with his dad has no idea how hard that man fought to make that ordinary Tuesday possible. This is what a real comeback looks like. Not a dramatic moment. Not a single turning point. Just years of grinding, quietly, in the direction of the life you want, when every part of you wanted to give up and go back to what was familiar. He did not go back. He went forward. And the proof is on the fridge. She cheated for 6 months and now her family is guilt-tripping him into staying with her. 9:58 p.m. Claude Respondio. She invited the man she was sleeping with into their home for Christmas dinner. She invited the man she was sleeping with into their home for Christmas dinner. She sat at that table with her husband and her 3.5-year-old daughter and she passed someone food and made conversation while her supervisor, the man she had been meeting in secret for at least 6 months, sat right there in their house. And her husband had no idea. Think about that for 1 second. Really think about it. He found out the way nobody expects to find out. Not through a confession, not through a friend tipping him off, not even through catching them together. He found out through their shared Google Photos folder. The one they had set up so both parents could see pictures of their daughter, birthday candles and bath time and backyard afternoons, the kind of album that is supposed to be nothing but warmth and memory. She had accidentally saved a screenshot there, a screenshot her affair partner had sent to prove he deleted some messages, and that image sat quietly in a family photo album until the wrong set of eyes landed on it. Picture what that moment must have felt like. Scrolling through photos of his little girl and then stopping cold. His whole body probably going still before his brain even caught up to what he was looking at. 10 years of marriage. 10 years of never once checking her phone, never questioning where she was, never doubting her. He said it himself. He trusted her completely, unconditionally, for a decade. And the thing that finally broke that trust was a screenshot hiding in a folder full of pictures of their little girl. He did not explode. He did not confront her immediately. He bought a voice-activated recorder and a car tracker and spent the next 2 weeks watching. Think about what those 2 weeks must have felt like. Coming home every evening and sitting across from her at dinner, watching her tuck their daughter in, listening to her talk about her day, knowing what he knew and saying nothing. Holding that weight alone while continuing to function like everything was fine. 8 separate instances. 8 times she slipped away after work and told him she was running late, her voice easy and casual, her lie delivered without hesitation. 8 times she lied directly to his face while he was home, probably putting their daughter to bed, waiting for her, completely unaware of what he had already found. 8 separate lies. And then he had everything he needed. Then he confronted her. He told her to leave and she did. She moved back in with her parents who live nearby. They set up a custody arrangement for their daughter. And then she started lying again, immediately, in the very first conversations they had after the confrontation. She told him the affair had only been going on for 2 months. He knows from his own evidence that it was at least 6. She trickle-truthed him while simultaneously begging him to take her back, the two things sitting side by side without any apparent awareness of how absurd that combination is. She cannot accept that he has made his decision. Every time he brings up divorce she begs him to reconsider. She is still trying to manage the story, still trying to shape what he believes and what he will ultimately do, still treating honesty as something she dispenses in controlled doses rather than something she simply owes him. Even now. Even after everything. And then her mother got involved. Now let me just stop here for a second because this part made my blood boil. Her mother has become suicidal over the situation. And now that emotional crisis is sitting on his plate. The man who was cheated on, the man who discovered the betrayal alone and processed it alone for 2 weeks before saying a single word, is now being expected to factor in his mother-in-law's mental state when deciding whether to end his marriage. There is something almost incomprehensible about that ask when you sit with it long enough. His own parents are asking him to reconsider. The people around him who are supposed to be in his corner are looking at him like he is doing something wrong by choosing himself. He asked it directly and I want to repeat his exact words back to you. He asked why he is being treated like a criminal when he has not done anything wrong. That is the right question. And the answer is ugly. The answer is that people around him are more comfortable with him absorbing the pain than they are with watching the consequences of what his wife did play out in front of them. His mother-in-law is struggling. His wife is devastated. His parents are worried about the family unit falling apart, about the holidays that will never look the same, about a granddaughter growing up between two households. And all of that discomfort gets redirected at the one person in this situation who is not responsible for creating any of it. He is being asked to carry the emotional weight of everyone else's reaction to his wife's choices. That is not support. That is pressure dressed up as concern. And there is a meaningful difference between those two things. Let us be honest about what staying would actually mean here. It would mean watching his daughter grow up in a home where her father modeled the lesson that betrayal is survivable if you bake hard enough afterward. It would mean sitting across the Christmas dinner table next year knowing what that table meant last year, knowing who sat there, knowing what was happening right under his roof while he smiled and poured drinks and had no idea. It would mean looking at his wife every day knowing she invited her affair partner to their Christmas dinner and managed to hold that secret behind her eyes for the entire meal. It would mean rebuilding something with a person who lied to him for 6 months and is still lying to him right now, in the immediate aftermath, when she has every incentive to finally be honest. If she cannot tell the truth when everything is already on the line, what exactly is he supposed to be rebuilding with? The foundation is not cracked. The foundation was deliberately destroyed. He said infidelity is a red line for him. He knew that before this happened. He was not making a reactive decision in a moment of rage, sitting in the shock of fresh hurt and reaching for the most extreme option available. He had already decided, before any of this came to light, what this would mean for his marriage if it ever happened. That kind of clarity is rare. Most people never have to test what they actually believe about themselves until the moment arrives and takes everything they thought they knew and shakes it. He tested it. He held to it. And when it did, he honored that boundary without theatrics, without cruelty, and without wavering. That is not cruelty. That is integrity. And the people in his life who are calling him cruel right now are confusing his boundaries with his punishment. He is not punishing her. He is protecting himself. There is something specific I want to say about the mother-in-law situation because it keeps coming up in stories like this and it needs to be named directly. Using someone's mental health crisis as leverage in a divorce negotiation, even unconsciously, even without meaning to, is a form of emotional manipulation. It does not matter whether it is intentional. The effect is the same. It puts the person who was betrayed in the position of being responsible for managing everyone else's emotional fallout from a decision they did not make and a situation they did not cause. He did not create this crisis. She did. And the people around her who are in pain right now are in pain because of her choices, not his response to them. He should not be the one absorbing that. His decision is not wrong. His decision is not cruel. His decision is the response of a person who knows their own values, survived a significant betrayal, and is choosing not to rebuild something with someone who is still actively lying to them. The verdict here is simple. He owes this situation his best co-parenting for the sake of his daughter. He does not owe it his marriage. Let her parents support her through the consequences of what she did. Let his parents be told clearly that their job right now is to support him, not negotiate on her behalf. And let him do exactly what he said he was going to do, because he is the only person in this entire situation who has been honest from the beginning. Drop a comment below and tell me which story hit you harder because I genuinely cannot pick one. And if this video got to you, a like and subscribe would mean a lot.